How you doing? It's Mick Tully for Woma TV, and I'm with the Red King himself, Rory MacDonald. And first of all, thank you so much for giving us the time.
My pleasure.
And secondly, we were supposed to be filming in the shadow of London Bridge, and it was going to have this great panoramic backdrop. And as you can see, you know, you see what the British weather looks like, right? So it's everything you expected, right?
A little grey and rainy out. It's all good.
Yeah. So you're here for Bellator 179 against Paul Daley, which that is going to be a huge fight. Yeah, everyone's really excited about it. But what I'm going to ask first of all, and I know you've been asked this so many times, but why Bellator?
Well, I was going through a contract negotiation point, you know, coming up to the end of my contract with UFC for about a year. So I was reaching out to the different companies, and Bellator was obviously one of the you know, main contenders, you know, as far as, you know, negotiating with different companies outside of UFC. So at the end of the day, they came out with the best numbers, but not just that. I think a lot of value is there with, you know, developing their athletes, their characters to the fans, things like that. The production value of the show, and, you know, it's just also just being like a guy they want to push, and not just another guy in the cattle, you know, so to speak, with the UFC.
Well, you see, that it's funny you said that, because Bellator is literally the only organisation. You know, Strikeforce had a good go at it, but at the time, the market was different. The UFC had a stranglehold.
Yeah. And
you know, you make the UFC, and a lot of guys would fight on the UFC just for the kudos for being on the UFC. And then obviously there's a few things like the Reebok deals come in, and it's a really bad deal for fighters now.
Yeah, it's definitely cut out a lot of our sponsors where we make a lot of our income. But you know, I've made my name from the UFC, so I have to appreciate what they've done for me and what I was able to accomplish on their platform. You know, I'll always be thankful and remember that. So you do at some point, you know, you need to invest and, you know, fight, you know, maybe for less money, but you need to at some point, you know, go somewhere they're gonna respect what you're worth. And you know.
Well, you see, you've hit on something really important, I believe, because when you look at the numbers, first of all, you know, that you've sold, your fights, you've never had a fight, even the losses have been super entertaining, you know, and I just could never work out how you weren't pushed more, because that, you know, you're a marquee name if you look at your performances, right?
Yeah, well, UFC is always going to push the guys with the loud mouths, and that's obviously something that I'm not. You know, I'm not willing to change that. I think I have to stay genuine to who I am, and you know, I think the fans have realized at this point in my career that I bring it when I'm in the fight. You know,
certainly,
I think a lot of people can appreciate that, and that's what I'm going to be bringing in the future.
You were a pioneer of what a mixed martial art athlete was, right? Before then, you know, your good friend, the mentor George St. Pierre, was Koyoka Shinkai. I remember him going into the cage once with a purple belt on him for jiu-jitsu. So he was one of those guys that did you know, he had a solid base here, but you were the guy who just went in, and it was an MMA, right? Yeah,
well, that's how I started my martial arts journey, was as I found a mixed martial arts gym. So I was able to start in all the disciplines at a young age and develop as a mixed martial artist, rather than someone who was strong in maybe one of the disciplines and had to pick up the rest as he went along.
Yeah. And what drove you to walk into that class for the first day?
I was interested in you know, combat sports. I'd always watch boxing and all, you know, old martial arts movies, even the original UFCs. I'd watch as a young kid, so I'd always liked it. I liked the idea of it, and I was always into other, like, you know, regular sports that kids would play growing up. But you know, at that point, I was kind of bored of that, and it was time for me to move on to martial arts. So I was lucky enough to have a mixed martial arts gym in my town.
Well, you see, again, this is a real funny thing, because my sons both played ice hockey, and you actually came on my radar when you first broke into the UFC, because I have a load of friends who are Canadian hockey players, and of course there was that funny moment where you had the hockey guys, and then they started getting into MMA just to augment their training, and that's when you first came up. And I couldn't believe it. You made your debut at 16, right?
Yeah, I was 16 years old. I was pretty young. I don't even know if they allow that anymore. I think you have to be amateur at that age, but I was lucky enough to fight under pro rules at that age, because I was a pretty, like, in my head I thought it was, pretty, hardcore guy. I wanted the hardcore rules. I didn't like the amateur rules, so I wanted to fight under, a pro rule set, and I was lucky enough to get in at the right time.
Well, when you mentioned the original UFC, I remember, I've been training 32 years, and I remember the first time I saw it, I felt horrific. I watched it and it was horrific. I was watching it, it actually scared me. But in hindsight, when I look back now, it was a very pure way of looking at combat. Yeah, and I'd like to ask you, what's your views on the myriad of rules now that you have in MMA in general?
Yeah, the original, like, no holds barred combat was intense. Like being able to hit to the groin and headbutts and stuff like that, and the ground strikes with your feet and stuff like that. Opened things up, more options, and it gave you less positions to be safe in. Whereas today, there's a lot more positions that guys can hang out and be a little more safe, or try some new techniques that they probably wouldn't be able to get away with, under no rules. So it changes the fight dynamic a bit, but still, this is definitely the most professional we could get our rules. So it's a sport, people are fan friendly, you can put it on TV, and still people know what it is when they watch. It's a fight, it's a full-on fight where there's no restrictions, whereas like boxing, you only have your hands, right? And there's nothing else. But so it's still a free fight. But with a few more changes, I think it would be better. I'm a headbutt advocate and things like that.
You are a headbutt advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the techniques I teach is the headbutt from guard from mark. You will break most people's guards if you go smashing machine on them, right?
Yeah.
Would you have fought? Would you have fought under the no time limits?
Yeah, absolutely. I would, if they brought that back, I would do it for sure.
Really? You wouldn't dodge any weight, would you?
I mean, I would probably not want to fight Cain Velasquez.
No.
Guys like that. But like
Cain's angry all the time.
Yeah. Well, he's all right. But
yeah, but he's intense, right?
I think it'd be a cool test to go up in weight class and fight bigger guys. I plan on doing that in Bellator. I have the options here to fight, middleweight or possibly 205 if it's
really.
Yeah, if there's the right matchup and it's the, there's the, if it gets the attention due, then I'm all up for that.
Well, I think you will get the attention because the Diaz McGregor thing was there was a lot of bad blood, and McGregor was awesome when he was throwing gang signs and making balloon animals and coming out with quips like that. That's hilarious. But
good, that.
Mano a mano is still really, really important. I really, really like Chael Sonnen's approach, the money weight division.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you go for that?
Yeah, I actually threw that out there. I challenged him after he said the money weight on Twitter. I was up for that, but he had other matchups at that weight. With Tito, and now he's got, I think, Vanderlei Silva coming up. So.
Would you go up against Chael or Vanderlei?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, I think that would be great for me. Great opportunity to fight a legend, either one of those guys.
Yeah, well, you see, this is what I've maintained, because I was speaking to quite a few friends of mine when we were talking about being able to meet up with you the first time round, and they all said the same thing. This guy is like so exciting. I was like, yeah, right, but why isn't he a huge star? And do you think when you were with the UFC, do you think that you could have been pushed more? Because we can say almost at least fight of the year. if not fight of the decade. That that war with Lawler, man, that was something else.
I appreciate it. Yeah, that fight definitely put me on the map as far as being a recognized fighter in my sport. That's all anybody wants to talk to me about is that fight, because it was just such an epic fight, and it was on a big card. I was fighting underneath McGregor on this fight with.
Well, you stopped the show. Was that Mendes?
Yeah, I believe it was against Mendes. So it was a big opportunity. There was a lot of eyes watching that fight. So that was a huge moment for me in my career, just to be recognized in my industry.
Well, when you were just saying about a lot of eyes watching it, that's the thing that I really believe Bellator have, because the UFC now is most of these guys, and don't get me wrong, these guys are putting food on the table and they're working hard at it, but you are either Conor McGregor or you're just like some T-1000 Terminator. There doesn't seem to be any difference. There doesn't seem to be any expression for a fighter as a person.
Yeah, they lost kind of the marketability of like each and every character where they had in the old school, the Pride days, they able to market each guy, so you can kind of get behind a character almost. And I feel like Bellator is doing a great job at that right now, and they get that concept, and it's only going to get better. Yeah,
you see, I love the way that Scott Coker approaches it, where when people say it's a freak show fight, and first of all, that's not a bad thing. Because if you watch anything that Antonio Inoki does, I'd watch that all day long. That's like, I love professional wrestling. I think professional wrestling is a soap opera for men. But it is. It's got everything that you need. But Scott calls them fun fights. So you'll get guys to come in, and when he was going to have James Thompson versus Kimbo, everyone knew what was going to happen there, but you'd still watch it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it's good to have that on. It's good to have those fights on a card. It brings the card out. Obviously you need the competitive guys who are battling for the title, and you need to have that platform. I think number one, but there's nothing wrong with having those fun fights on there. Absolutely.
Right. Well, the last time I met, we were talking, and I actually forgot myself when we were talking. And because you started so young, but you've been around for so long, people forget how old you are.
Yeah, right? Yeah. People think I'm old and I'm on my way out, but I got quite a bit of time left in this sport. 28 now, right? 27. 27. Yeah. You see, I forgot myself again, right? But this is going to lead me into something, because the last Lawler fight, just unbelievable. I actually liked what you did. I think it was on Instagram, where you put a picture of you after the Condit fight and a picture of you after the Lawler fight, and say which one of these guys did my makeup better. And it was pretty savage, and that was a great fight. And then the Wonder Boy fight, which, bear in mind, I find unironic because he's called the Wonder Boy, and he's 5 years older than you? He's 34, is he? Yeah, he's up in his 30s. Yeah. So how's he get called the Wonder Boy, and you're like considered the old man of MMA? Yeah, it's just something that lingered in his. Yeah. So what happened? What happened with the Wonder Boy fight? I felt like I tried to play his game. I trained a lot of karate, kickboxing, and ended up trying to fight him in that style. With not much focus on strong wrestling and good boxing and things like that. I just I looked away from my strengths and tried to almost beat him at his own game, and I think that was the big mistake in that one. You see, this is funny, because when Rory is just Rory, that's something else. And I remember watching that fight, and I was watching it with my eldest son. My eldest son was like, this doesn't look like the guy who German suplexed Diaz 3 times in a round, Yeah. So, was that an ego thing? Did you want to beat him at his own game, or? Not so much. It was just more of it was just kind of a snowball effect, where you start doing something in training camp thinking it might be helpful, and then it just kind of snowballs and overtakes it, and then before you know it, that's all you're doing. So that's what happened there, and it was just an error in the training and the lead up to the fight, rather than just focusing on my strengths and getting myself ready like usual. Well, you see, again, this leads really nicely into, you're probably, I think, along with GSP, I don't know if there's something in the water in TriStar,
but you're one of the most intelligent fighters. I mean, not just with an approach to the fighting, because you know, this 90% of all fights is mental. You know, if that was the case, you know, Stephen Hawking would be winning in the UFC. You know, so it doesn't really work like that.
I hear you.
But you took time out, and that was. If you don't mind me asking, how many times do you think you've had your nose broken?
Oh, I lost track. I broke it in the Robbie fight, and I wanted to take some time to heal that. They were saying, give it 3 months, it should be fine. I gave it about 2.5 months before I started sparring again, full on. And I broke it again, gave it another couple months, started sparring again. It was getting banged up or whatever, probably fracturing it some more, and then I broke it again before the fight with Steven, then in the fight against Steven. So that's why I took a lot of time off before starting training camp. I didn't really spar much before that. I just worked on what I could to keep improving and focusing on my strengths.
Right.
And it was a big success. It's been tested in training camp, and I feel it's behind me. I don't really think of it anymore. Yeah. So I'm excited to get out there and just fight, and you know, get the momentum going, so I could just keep fighting.
Well, when you just mentioned against Robbie, did you break your nose? Was it in the second round?
Yeah.
Right, and that's, you know, how did you keep going? Because you must have been just breathing in blood, right?
The broken nose wasn't a big deal. Obviously, you feel it, and it kind of hurts at first or whatever, and it was more the blood where it was going. Every time I would try to breathe, it would go into my lungs and blocking my nose, obviously. So I was just breathing a lot of blood in. I felt like I was just drinking it back, and it was like filling up my lungs. And just at, you know, the high pace of the fight, and trying to finish him twice in the third and then in the fourth, I was exhausting myself. Yeah. And with the blood, you know, taking up my space in my lungs, I was just having a very hard time recovering. Yeah. And by the fifth, I was pretty much like done.
So do you think fatigue
oh yeah, absolutely. I was completely fatigued. I was trying to like keep my eyes like, you know, in the fight so he couldn't see it, but he could see that my body language was not there, and you know, he kept peppering me on the nose, and it was breaking me down, and that's what did me in.
Right. And do you think you came back too quickly for the Thompson fight, in hindsight?
Yeah, because I didn't let it rest in my, like I kept training hard with sparring outside of fighting.
Right.
If I would have just gave some time, you know, not sparring and things like that, the time frame would have been fine. But
yeah, you see, this again is down to age, because it's not the age of the car, it's the miles on the clock, right?
Yeah.
And it's like Vanderlei, you know, Vanderlei Silva's 10 years younger than me, and he looks older than me because he's been in some severe wars,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How much emphasis do you put on recovery and rest now when it comes to injuries?
Yeah, I put a big emphasis on health. Whenever I, you know, have the time, I try to recover between everything I do, you know, especially after fights. And more recently, I've gotten a lot more, you know, in tune with, you know, eating better and just overall health of my body. Yeah. And I think that's just going to be better for the long run.
Where do you see this going? Because even at your age now, there's another 7-8 years easily, I would have thought, right?
For my
fighting,
career?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I see myself. You know, I definitely, you know, plan on fighting in my late 30s, you know.
Right.
You never know what happens. I mean, I'm just going with the flow with this, but you know, I definitely see myself, you know, hopefully one day fighting legendary status where I could fight other old legends, you know, like, you know, Tito and Chael were doing, and Vanderlei and Chael and things like that. I think that would be cool. At the end of my career, I was finishing off like that.
Again, you know, when you say that, but you fought a legend from almost the same time period in Robbie Lawler, because Robbie Lawler was a young kid coming up. Yeah. And you know, people forget how young he is, really.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been around for forever because he started so young.
Yeah. So before we talk about the Paul Daley fight, do you see much of GSP now that he's back training?
Yeah. He's always at the gym.
Right.
Yeah. And when he's not traveling.
Yeah. What do you think with the Bisping fight? Do you think that's a good matchup?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's still happening. I keep hearing mixed things, like with the middleweight division. So, I mean, I don't know what's going on there, but it'll get sorted. And I see George as, a very well-rounded guy.
Yeah.
And he's going to be a tough fight for anybody he fights. I see him in the gym against big guys, and he does just fine. So
he does well, right?
Yeah.
And when you first when did you hit TriStar? How old were you?
I was about 19 when I first started visiting, I think.
Right, because there was, apart from George, there were some big names there at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a lot of legendary fighters around Canada.
Yeah,
so good experience.
There was, as I recall, Dennis Kang.
Yeah,
David the Crow.
Yeah.
Luazo. What are these guys up to now? Do you still see them around?
Not as much. Obviously, everyone's kind of moved on, to other things. But Dennis is back home teaching in Vancouver. David's got a school in Montreal, and so he's busy with that. Right.
So we're going to just get onto the Paul Daley, because he was very quiet, and I know Paul, and Paul was very respectful of you and his status as a fighter, but he's one of the best in the business at trash talking. He had Koscheck ready to fight him in the lobby of a hotel. And he's starting to get a little bit vocal now to hype up the fight, but still not too much. But what's your the best plan is no plan, I know, but how are you going into this fight against Daley?
Like I've said in past interviews, I'm just gonna stick to my strengths, and I think my strengths is, from what people know of me, is an aggressive style.
Yeah.
So I'm going in there to hunt this guy like anybody else. I'm putting his strengths aside. I'm coming forward in every aspect of mixed martial arts, and I'm going to hunt him down and take this guy out.
Because standing up, everybody knows Paul's a banger, and you can't really say it's a weakness now. I think he's more than capable, in all ranges now. But again, you and him standing toe to toe for a couple of rounds, that's going to be an interesting fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I'm a mixed martial artist, though, so this fight can go anywhere, and I plan on taking it everywhere to keep him on his toes. I think I've made the mistake of becoming just a straight kickboxer for some fights, and this will definitely be a mixed martial arts fight, so he's got to be ready for that.
Well, that's the thing, because I've always looked at you and thought one of your greatest strengths is, if you get on top of somebody, that's not going to end well.
Absolutely.
Because there's elbows and strikes come from everywhere, right?
Yeah.
When the fight's over, and hopefully you're going to win against Daley, what are you looking towards next?
I'd like to fight on the New York card, but I don't think there's any room. I've been bugging them all the time, like, get me a fight on that card, but I don't think it's going to happen. Unless someone gets injured, I'll be ready. Yeah, because
you have famously said that you want to stay busy.
Yeah. I want to fight a lot, and if something came up at middleweight or something like that, I'd be down.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't want to cut weight that close again, but if that doesn't happen, they said I would get the title shot against the winner.
The weight cut doesn't affect you at the moment, no?
Well, I mean, not right now. I'm pretty comfortable at my weight at around 181, 182. So, but in the next few days, it's going to start sucking.
Yeah, always does. Yeah, when you're looking at it, you go, I want water. Yeah. And what do you do? What do you do to relax?
Like fight week?
Well, no. After fight week, it's obvious it's intensity.
No, I just go back to my regular life, go back to training, and I have a good life. I spend time with my family, and
because you're a new father as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how's that working out for you?
Amazing. I love my daughter and my girlfriend. It's a nice family, and we're really happy.
Yeah, but that will change. That now has to change your outlook on your career.
Yeah.
Yeah, for definite. Because what's your focus now?
My focus is fighting for what I'm worth. You know, I know I bring a lot to the table. I know a lot of people are going to be watching my fights, and I expect to be paid for it.
Well, again, it's my sons were telling me this. I don't know if it was at the Ottawa Senators State Arena, but you sold out Ottawa.
Yeah,
and now they can't.
About 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah, it was something quick like that.
Right. Do you think Dana will turn around one day and?
It's possible. Yeah. I mean, when it's contract negotiation time, I'm sure everyone's gonna have, you know, open ears in all cases. But it's, as of right now, I'm happy with Bellator, and I know Bellator is gonna be fighting hard to keep me with them.
Well, that's the thing. I really believe, as much as your fight career is stellar, I think you'll be known primarily for two things. First, for being one of the first ever mixed martial arts athletes, and for the first guy to open the door for the free agents. Because that was when it broke that you were signing. Everyone's like, the UFC have actually lost their stranglehold now, because before then it was golden handcuffs. You were with them or nobody else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, not having any options definitely hurts the fighters, you know, in our negotiation period. It's kind of, we get what we get, and that's not a fun place to be.
I wish you all the best for the future. You're an absolute gent.
Thank you.
And
appreciate it.
yeah, the way you conduct yourself outside of the cage, I think is exemplary. And you can see that you spent time with GSP, but inside the cage, you're an absolute killer, man. And
Thank
you. I never ever get bored watching you fight.
Awesome. I
All right.
really appreciate
Thanks
it.
again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.